structure of how I do my training, and I want to just start off saying that I won't spend too much time into that and all, but I'll just start off. So I shared a folder. I think you all should have access, and the training coordination team must have given you the access to this training batch 87 integration. So I have split my folder into a couple of subfolders. All the videos will go here as the names here, and the presentation will go here. So I'm going to talk about these two presentations today. And all the class exercise, what we do, we go here, and anything interesting or external documents that you guys want or that I want to put will be here. And of course, the project, whatever project you're going to work based on every session will be going here, and test will go here. I already have a test here. So based on today's session, I suggest that you take this test and email it to me, okay? And I'll take a look at your answers, and I may respond back, or I'll come back in the next. I'll put a key as well, and the next class we'll start out answering the key, and then we'll go into we'll do a small recap, and we go into the session. That's typically how I want to do it. And these projects, you could do it, or you could, obviously we have the weekend. We could, you can spend time the weekend and do it. I know it might be a bit difficult, but in case if you want to do it, do it. And if you have any questions, you can also email me. If you think the question is very general in nature, where everybody can be benefited, send it to the group. If you want it to be very specific to me, you can email just to me. You all have my email address. You also have the group email address here as well, right? Okay, so, and let's open up the presentation here.
Sam, sorry to interrupt you. Everyone's voice is clear except yours. There's some, there's some sound disturbance in your voice actually.
All right, let me check. Guys, others who are on the call, how audible am I? Do you guys see the disturbance as well, or is it just same, or is it me? Can you please give me an idea?
It's fine for me. It's fine.
Yeah, I'm fine too, Sam.
Sam, it's fine.
Yeah, it's fine for me.
All right, thanks, guys. I'm not sure. You might want to reconnect to the audio or something, but I'm increasing my, volume as well.
Yeah, no problem. Continue.
All right, thank you. Guys, like I said, put yourself on mute, and if you have any questions, don't even wait. Just unmute, ask me questions. I'll be happy to answer. All right. So obviously you got the curriculum, and our objective in this 10 hours, it's definitely going to be a little more than that, and I'm okay with that as long as you guys are okay as well. We'll get an insight into how SAP to non-SAP integration actually works. Not just from ABAP point of view, like programming point of view. It is going to be like more functional point of view. As a functional consultant, how should you approach the work assigned to you as in the integration space? Now, when you are working in a client's place, pretty much you all are working for some company here already. The integration, the interface decision is actually made by the business. We need to integrate to another system. Depending on which client you work for and how big the project is and how complex the project is, it boils down, the roles could be different. I worked in an environment where, the business decides we need to integrate SAP with, this vendor or customer or this service management system or this production system, etc. And the spec is built out, but we have a whole separate integration team that actually architects the solution. Okay, which tools are we going to use? Now, what kind of message you're going to choose and all those things. But the actual build is done by a different team. So it varies. But pretty much the functional consultant plays a larger role here. The ABAP consultant does not decide on the architecture. Sometimes they do. If you are very highly experienced as an ABAP consultant, yes, you might play a role there, and you might play a bigger role in deciding, many things, which we'll get into as well. All right. So, but our objective here is to, consider that you are going to play that role. You could be in a separate integration team, or it could be a functional team. or it could be an ABAP team as well. It doesn't matter which team you belong to. Like I said, who does what varies. Sometimes the SAP piece alone, will be done by SAP functional consultants, and if any customization needs to be done on the, like ABAP working with an ABAP consultant. But we'll focus on all this as well, but not from ABAP point of view, but functional point of view. So obviously, you need to know some of these modules. Pretty much everybody in this session already are into some of the functional ECC core modules, including ABAP. If you have knowledge of ECC, that should be fine. And no basic knowledge is required. Now, since you asked me this question, I guess, Rahul, basis does play a role depending on the work that is required. If you need to set up connections between two different systems, then basis may play a role, but they don't really play a role in architecting and designing the solution, and they don't really play any role in considering what kind of data that needs to be flowing in and out and all those things. But setting up the connection is done by the base system typically. But we'll also get into some of those items as well, from not from basis point of view, but at least you guys know what basis usually do. All right, so even though some of the IDoc or integration between SAP to non-SAP system, when I say non-SAP system, this could be any system. Or it could be within our firewall, which means in your own company, and it could be outside your firewall, which could be outside your company. Okay, so we will see the difference there in a bit there. And why you should be considering all these aspects of integration is, when you're going to work in SAP projects, integration is going to be there. You already know, all you guys are working on projects. You always hear about IDocs, you always hear about EDI and integrating with that partner, this system, that system. It is going to be there, and it's going to add value to your resume. It will definitely add value because without integration, EDI, systems cannot survive, and we'll see why that is also. Okay. All right, so let's look at this small, very simple example. As you know, SAP ECC is the central repository of data in all the companies. That's a recommended solution by SAP, which means that master data is only in one system. So we have MDMs and all, but we'll not talk about that. But ECC specifically is where companies trying to business set up master data, they do some transactions and do all those kind of entries. But SAP ECC, SAP is not the only system at your client's place, right? There are many other systems. Let's take an example when we don't have SAP. Let's say Sam's company, Sam's a cell phone company, okay? So I have my own cell phone company, for example, and I don't have SAP today. I use different systems. Maybe I use JD Edwards or PeopleSoft-based systems to run my companies, and I have all these different systems within my landscape on my enterprise. I have Ariba, which is a procurement system. I have EANS, Enterprise Asset Management System. I have Forecast system feeding in. I have Warehouse Management System, Manufacturing Execution System, a planning system, and we have a shop floor control system that connects with all these MES systems. We have all these docked out, blocks of vendors, customers, and banks. They're external system, not within my firewall. When I say firewall, which is my enterprise, okay? When it goes outside my firewall, it is outside my enterprise. Vendors or third-party companies, customers are obviously third-party companies, banks are obviously third-party companies. So integration can happen with SAP to a non-SAP system within firewall, or it can happen with SAP to non-SAP system outside firewall. There is a very small difference, but the overall picture and concept is all the same. That's what we're going to get into. Okay, so this picture is very important, and I'll be basically talking about this picture most of the times, and I will be bringing up this picture in every session if possible, so that we look at the big picture, and all these systems have to connect, and they all have to talk. They can't really talk easily, right? because they all are systems built by different programmers, different vendors are supplying these systems, and that's, nothing is really standard, right? Because they are all built by different systems, different programming tools, and they all have different type of databases, and we need to make the French guy speak with a German guy. How do you make the French guy speak with German guy? You need to have a translator, right? For example, in this case, the Ariba system and the ECC has to talk through a middleware system. In this case, the message broker. In this case, I have iSoft, we have PI, we have GIS. All these green blocks are middleware systems, okay? And all these, the docked out black ones are external third-party systems. All these light blue ones are, systems within our landscape, similar to vendor or customer in terms of receiving the data, sending data, but obviously they have their own functionalities and all. But every system is meant for different purpose. They have different way of communicating, and that's why integration becomes very necessary. You can't just run a company with SAP ECC anymore. I mean, not anymore. It has been that way all the time. Plus, at some point in time, the client might want to retire all these systems also, right? So let's say if I'm a cell phone company, I decided to implement SAP and I got ECC into this block. But do you think I'll immediately take away warehouse management system and start using warehouse management in SAP? No. Do you think I'll start using the forecast, in SAP rather than using forecast system? No. I take some time, right? I take some time to make sure I understand, what SAP can offer and make sure SAP can do certain things, and then I'll slowly start retiring these systems. So I'll start integrating and feed some important information and all those things from different systems, and then I'll retire in the future. So integration is necessary here also, okay? And for day-to-day activities, another good example is MES systems. SAP is a very good planning system. And we have SAP MES, SAP MII, they all are there, which is very recent. But most of the companies don't use SAP for execution purpose. That is doing the actual shop floor activities. And some of the shop floor activities are very strange, and it interacts a lot with control systems, which means all these machines and work centers and all. So we have to use third-party MES system that can interact with the shop floor. So SAP has to integrate with MES. It needs to send data back and forth on what needs to be manufactured. Another case, planning system. It actually, we may not have, APO yet. Maybe we just have a planning system that feeds in data into ECC that converts, planned order into production order. Or maybe the forecast system is sending the forecast of plan independent requirements. Maybe SAP is sending, purchase order for asset purchasing to, EAMS and Ariba systems, right? So. And of course, vendors, customers, banks, we interact with them daily. If you want to send a purchase order to a vendor, obviously you get a purchase order, send it to them. So all these communication, interaction has to happen on a day-to-day basis, and this is a very simple picture, okay? It could be very complicated at your organization when you go and start working. I could have, obviously have hundreds of vendors, hundreds of customers, many banks, and all these many systems are there. And maybe they only have one single middleware system, or they have multiple middleware systems. It's possible. All right. So this picture is very important, and you need to have a picture like this at your company too. They should build they usually have a picture. You can always try to get a picture and see which systems are connecting to each other and all those things. All right. So this is basically saying what I just mentioned, already. So going back to the second paragraph here, the flow of data and information across ERP and non-ERP system or SAP system plays a vital role in handling day-to-day business critical transactions to keep SAP synchronized with our systems. Other important thing, right? MES is manufacturing, but MES doesn't know what to manufacture. It has to react to changes. And vendors have to ship the product, and they don't know what to ship unless we send the PO, and so they send the advanced shipment notification to SAP. So we need to take care of that as well. So, and you can figure out any possible scenario in your module. If you're PP or SD or MM, doesn't matter. The whole concept of EDI integration is the same thing. All right, and it applies to all the modules, HR, FICO, or MM, or WM, SD, and all the areas. It's all the same concept, but the objects that we work with is different. For MM, we use different IDoc types and message types, and similarly for PP and HR and FIs, we all use different IDoc and message types. So either way, so this again gives you a snapshot of what we just discussed. And here's another picture. So obviously SAP interacts with all these different systems through a middleware system. We already saw Message Broker or MQSI, TIBCO, BizTalk, TI, GIS, ISOP, GIS, these all are different middleware structure systems provided by different companies. GIS and GIS MFT are now IBM-based products. BizTalk, Microsoft-based products. So Message Broker, Message Broker is also IBM-based. It has been that way. But do you think all these different systems do different things? They might have different fancy features, but they do two important things. Only two important things. Doesn't matter which middleware system you bring in. One is they do routing. Second thing is they do transformation. All right. If you have 100 different systems, 100 different vendors, 100 different third-party systems, and if you want SAP to integrate with those systems, this middleware team knows to route a particular message to a particular system. That's what routing logic is. The second thing that the middleware system does is transformation. If you're sending a data, obviously an IDoc out to another system or a vendor, a customer, a bank, the data structure in SAP and the data structure in other system might be different. It could be a middleware system within our firewall. It could be an outside, a GXS or Innovace or Sterling or Seaburger, based middleware system outside also. Doesn't matter which middleware system it is. They all do the same purpose, meant for the same purpose, routing or transformation. So transformation means, let's say you're sending a value on the IDoc. All right, I understand a lot of people already know what IDoc is. I know IDoc, but the other system doesn't like the value in the way it is presented. Okay, maybe that system would expect a couple of extra zeros in front, or it wants to truncate certain values so that they only care about the few characters, or they want that value to be transformed into a different value based on some algorithm or a rules or formula within the middleware, right? So for example, we can only send in kg, but they don't like in kg. They want it to be in pounds. So what do? We can, obviously SAP has capability of doing all those things. But let's say in this example, SAP is sending in kg and they don't want in kg, they want in pounds. So you convert it. But who converts it? They said, I can't convert it. SAP said, I can't convert it. Who'll do it? Middleware will do it. Usually getting all these kind of rules and transformation work done in middleware is very easy, and it is cheaper than doing it in SAP using ABAP consultants or bugging these guys to do it. If it is a one-off change, there are some considerations that you need to do when you design the interface solution, right? It's not about the available tool. It's about who's doing what. Where do you want the change to be done? If you want to make a change, like in this case, converting or the value on the field, you can do it in SAP, you can do it in middleware, you can also do it in other systems. But which one do you want to do? That's based on the cost. That's based on the technical limitations or the political decision or technical decision that is made of the organization. But you have to understand that anything is possible. You can do the change everywhere. But either way, so these middleware systems are used for communicating with these SAP and non-SAP systems, and we will be focusing on the ERP to middleware part as well. Right. So two things, like I said, one is within firewall, one is outside firewall, right? But the whole concept of integration is the same thing. But you start hearing the word EDI.
Sam, this is Dheeraj.
I'm sorry, who's that is?
Sam, this is Dheeraj. Sorry, just a quick question. So middleware would only come into picture if it's SAP to non-SAP systems.
I'm sorry, what? What's the question?
No. So the middleware would only come into picture if you're trying to communicate between SAP and non-SAP systems only? Or would we need that if it's one SAP to, like, let's say, a legacy SAP system?
No. It may not be required if you want to communicate from SAP to another SAP system. For example, if you want to have SAP APO to connect with SAP ECC, they both know they need to connect. You can either bring it, for example, again, it depends. They can connect naturally, all right? if you want to, if you want to, let's say you want to do some planning in APO and you want to send down the production order, planned orders into ECC, or you want to exchange bill of material recipe data, which is all standard thing. We can just connect with both the systems, and there are some things that you need to do in both the systems. We have something called integration models within these systems. When you do this connection, they can naturally connect. But what if there is a real need for you to manipulate the data in between without, bringing the ECC and APO changes, which is very weird, but it is still possible. You can bring in PI and you can connect APO and PI and ECC, or ECC, PI and ACC, now whatever it is. SAP to SAP system naturally can connect, and that's a recommended way of doing it. But they can keep in mind, they're also standalone systems. They are meant to connect with other systems. So APO can also connect with PI or MQSI and other systems too. Right. But to answer your question, yes.
Yeah, you did. Thank you.
All right. So we have two different topics, but the whole concept is the same. That's how you need to look into this thing. EDI is outside world. ALE is inside world. Outside enterprise and inside enterprise. But the whole functionality of how things work, and it's all the same thing. So EDI obviously stands for electronic data interchange. It's been there for a long, long time. It's a very old concept. It's not SAP's concept. It is an outside. It has been there even before SAP maybe came into picture. And it's a standard way of communicating with outside system. There are two different standards, ANSI and EDFACT, and here's a small picture. Nowadays we have cloud-based middleware systems. Pretty much everything is getting into cloud-based nowadays for cheaper infrastructure and all. So we have a ECC in the form of IDoc connects to PI or middleware, connects to an EDI in the form of EDI, obviously through a middleware system, which is a translator, and the form of EDI connects to the cloud or the internet to other different systems. Do we really need a PI and middleware system here? Maybe not. We can just connect ECC directly to the translator or the middleware system also. So it depends on the requirement and what you guys really want to do and all those things. So the next is ALE. Stands for application linking and enabling, right? So it's SAP's own concept. They came out with their own concept to communicate SAP with other systems within their own landscape, within the firewall. So we have ECC connects to PI or any system, but in the form of flat file or XML or any other format, it connects with different systems within the landscape of the company, right? So that's ALE basically. So EDI or ALE, it's a different, the words might mean different, but the whole idea of getting the message out of SAP and building the whole, architecting the whole solution is all the same thing. All right, so let's get into my next slide here. This is supposed to be class 0. All right, while I'm getting this, do you guys have any questions so far?
Sam, any questions?
Sam, this is
with this
Rahul.
information?
I'm sorry, someone was crossing over.
Sam, this is Rahul.
Yeah, Rahul, please go ahead.
Yeah. See, when you want to connect within the firewall, that means when you are connecting a SAP ECC with an SRM, so then you call it as within the firewall?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, and with SAP with other, if a company is using SAP with other ERPs and you want to connect both of them, then also it is called as a within the firewall?
Right. If your company is using any systems within the enterprise, now when I say enterprise, it could be anywhere in the world. It's not just in your network. It could be anywhere in the world. We call them within our firewall.
Okay. So
Now,
if
when
it
I
is
say
with
firewall,
uh-huh.
yeah, when I say firewall, it's not the local area network firewall I'm trying to say.
Mm-hmm.
It's a general term that we use for the enterprise, system that is within our landscape.
Okay. Okay. So if you want to connect with any vendors or customers, then it is called as outside the firewall, right?
Right, right.
Okay. Yeah, it's clear. I think someone had some doubt.
Anyone have any other questions? Someone jump in as
Sam,
well.
this is Dheeraj. Yeah, Sam,
Yeah, Dheeraj.
this is Dheeraj. Sorry. So even if it's a non-SAP system, that will be an ALE and not an EDI if it's within the company's infrastructure?
Right.
Okay, thanks.
So I had two documents here. I'm not sure where those documents are. Let me try to pull it again.
Yeah, I had the same problem. I went into the drive, but I don't see any folders for B87 at all.
You don't see B87 at all?
No, I don't see that. I see a B84 or something, but let me see.
Let me share B87 again.
I have a B80, 83, 84, and 85, but that's all I see, unless I didn't get the right one.
No, it is shared with mock at, you guys are using mock at 101 ERP ID, right?
Right.
Right, it is shared. You all can look into edit it also, but can you go and check under shared with me section? That's where you need to check shared with me, and that's where it will bring it up. Is it the same problem everybody here? Did anyone else try this thing?
So not to hijack this, but when I go into Google Docs and enter my password, I see a list of some Word documents. It says, today, I see two files under your name, copy of SAP Integration Training Class, HW_1 and test_1. So I don't know how to get to any folders or...
Mm-hmm. Let me show you how you guys can get into the folder. So once you are logging into that system, right? You probably will be seeing something like this. Maybe I should actually log into that system. So what password was given to you guys?
SimBiz9864, I believe.
What's SIMPBI? Is it all small?
Let me just check this one, sorry. Sorry, let me get you that right password. It is SIMPBIZ9876. Sorry, I gave you the wrong password.
9876. Okay, that's fine. Well, I'm logging in. So I'm getting into the drive section here. So what I want you guys to do is click on Share with Me on the left-hand side.
Okay.
That'll give all the list of folders that are shared. So if you click on Training Batch B87, you have all these subfolders, and I have my files here.
Got it. Sorry, yeah, I didn't, sorry, it took me to something else with the list of some. I didn't, yeah. Now I see
Okay.
what you see, thanks.
All right, cool. So let me go back to the second slide that I want to bring up today. Okay, I see it now. All right. You already saw this picture from the previous slides. We'll again keep seeing it again and again. All right, so obviously the first topic that we should be talking about is IDocs. Okay, so IDocs are basically intermediate documents. It is an object that is created by SAP to carry data from one place to another place. So let's log into SAP for a bit and take a look a little bit. I hope you all have ECC set up already. GUI set up already. What's going on here? Okay, got it. So when we start doing exercises, we'll get more access. In the meantime, we have allowed multiple access to this user ID. You can feel free to log in, take a look and all. So, like I said, IDocs is a concept within SAP which stands for intermediate documents, and it is a form of, getting message out of SAP or getting message into SAP. All right, it has its own structure. Think about IDoc as like a bus, right? A bus that can actually, obviously you have different types of bus, right? We have different classes of bus, different types of bus, but a bus can go from one place to another place. It can carry different passengers. Likewise, IDoc can carry different data value into it, and you can actually give to it a different system. So an important transaction you want to come across when you work with IDoc is WE02, which stands for IDoc list. Obviously, as it says here, you can find IDocs here. When I say you can find IDocs here, these IDocs have been already created. We'll go into why, how, and why, and all those things later. But here's where, end of the day, you're going to spend a lot of time in. If you're trying to work on fixing problems, this is where you're going to spend a lot of time. So in this case, I'm going to just execute just like that and try to see what I can get. So I have a lot of cost mass, a type of IDoc that has been created. We have about 728 messages. That's what it says. Total number of messages here. IDocs here that has been created, and if you scroll down, you will see the dates and timestamps on it. It looks like they are being generated on a daily basis. Someone's ran some program. It's still sending or creating today. So now, you are seeing these IDocs. They have IDoc numbers here. Every IDoc will have its own IDoc number, unique sequential IDoc number. Okay, which means that, let's say PP, MM, SD, FICO, HR, they all are generating their IDocs. Every time an IDoc is created, it doesn't matter which module is doing it, a sequential number is assigned to the IDoc and it is created. And there are different colors for IDocs too, which basically say the status of the IDoc. You see the red color, which means IDoc failed. A green color, the IDoc actually passed. When I say passed, it did what it is intended to do. All right. And then yellow, which means it is parked. It is actually in the parked status, means it is waiting for another program or another thing to actually process the IDoc. usually a program to process this IDoc. So there are 3 different statuses of an IDoc here: green, red, and yellow. Okay, and one of your role is going to be fixing all these yellow ones. You know, when you work in the SAP environment, you're going to see all these red ones. Red ones have been failed, and you need to go and take a look and see why it failed. You know, in this case, it says could not find the code page of the receiving system. All right. So in another case, the same thing. Another system is not even connected properly here. All right. So yellow, it basically, you know, says receiver found, no version, you know, and other, it's still waiting. So let's not go in details about all these error messages now, but at least try to get a feel of what an IDoc is and what the IDoc number means and what the status of the IDoc and all those things. Now, 3 status that we said is general status, okay, which means that green, yellow, or red. But every IDoc has its own different number of statuses depending on the process it is going through. So we look into some of them as well, but there are n number of processes there. So in this case, we have 30, which is in POC status. It is 02, it is failed status. You know, we have 03, it is in green status. These are all outbounds here. Keep in mind, these are only outbounds it is showing. We never had any inbound messages, which means inbound means coming into SAP. Outbound means going out of SAP, right? It could be a message going to a third-party system. Could be a message going to a vendor, or a bank, or a customer, anything. Outbound comes out of SAP. Inbound comes back into SAP from vendors, customers, or any of our internal systems within our landscape. Doesn't matter, it's all the same thing. Now, partner is another important concept, which basically means who are you integrating with, okay? It could be a system, it could be a company, or a vendor, a customer. A partner is somebody who receives your message or sends your message, okay? And the type of IDocs, let's not go into this right now, but the type of IDoc is cost mass, which is basically cost center. Then the date and time it was created, and whether it's inbound, outbound, and what's a port. Port is another concept. We'll also get into it, in a little bit later. But that's like an entry, an exit door, where the IDoc leaves and enters. And based on that, the structure of IDoc also changes. All right, so WE02. I'm going to make sure I show the transaction code here in case you forget it. And when you execute this transaction, you can also give all these different parameters, what's the direction of IDoc, right? If you are sending an IDoc from SAP, the direction of the IDoc will be 1. Okay, it's the outbound IDoc. So receiving an IDoc into SAP, it will be direction is 2, inbound IDoc, which is very important because you don't want to run this transaction without giving the direction of the parameters, because it might take a lot of time to run this transaction production environment, right? Because in production environment, you'll have thousands and thousands of IDocs every single day that's being created, and you need to make sure you fine-tune. You know a lot of things about the IDoc you're searching for. You may not want to search for all the IDocs that FIC or MM is doing when you're in PP area, right? And try to put the partner who's sending or receiving it, and if you know the message type, we'll get into that later on. And and if you're looking for any failed messages, you can put all these status codes and all. So this is a very important transaction that you're going to come across, WE02. All right. Now, there's another transaction, WE09. There's a difference between these 2 transaction codes. Now, you go into WE09, it's pretty much the same screen that you saw before in WE02, but when you scroll down, it can do some other fancy things as well. You can actually look at a particular IDoc if you're searching for a particular message, and value in the IDoc.
Sam,
let's say, for example, I'm sorry, who's that?
Sam, this is Kiran here. Sam,
of the IDoc that we're sending, basic type and message type, we'll see the difference. We'll see how these are linked and all. And another important thing is partner. Okay, who is getting the information and who is sending the information, right? Obviously, 2 different systems. Sender obviously is the system, the SAP system, but it also has its own name. We'll find out where you can go and give it its own name. And recipient is another SAM test 1 is another system. It could be a vendor too. So partner can be anything. So all other good details that when the IDoc was created and all those different things, right? So control record, it's like it has the control information, data record has data information, status record has the status of the IDoc right now. Obviously this is POC, that's why it is status 30. When you look at the inbound, the status number, right? 01, 030, it's only for outbound. Inbound has its own different statuses. 51 is our failures, 53 is the green. So we can look into all this. I'm trying to bring it, it's not bringing, but I'll show you guys different statuses as well. You don't really need to remember all the statuses. Keep in mind if it's a custom status, then obviously it might vary. But there are some standard statuses that you need to really know. We'll also look into that as well. Okay. Coming back to our slide, the first important thing that, let's say you are given a task to configure, or you're not configure, you are given a task to implement an interface between SAP to another system, all right? So you need to know the system names, what you want to give the name to the system, and obviously you need to know the system that you are actually sending the message from. So that's more from a technical point of view. Sometimes logical systems are created by ABAP team, sometimes basis team. You can also do it if if your company allows you. Now that's basically to identify a system in the landscape. A unique name is given, and it could be a middleware also because you're actually sending into the middleware, or any third-party system, whichever system is getting your message. Then, or it could be another client as well within your logic, with an SAP system. You want to connect to APO or SRM or other systems, you can do it as well. So BD54 is a transaction code that you can use to go and create a logical system. So BD64. I'm sorry. Did I put BD64? It should be BD54. Okay. So it's a cross-line because that's how SAP designed these old solutions. You see all these different logical systems. Obviously, it's an APO client, and we have AI, which is an auto ID infrastructure client, and you could have any client listed here, or any system that you want to define in your landscape. You need to list it here. You can't just go and do the next steps unless you have this one listed. Okay, so we will go and create some, but let's try to pick some that is already there for now. This is SAM test, right? So SAM test is let's say SAM test is an MES system you want to integrate with. So we'll consider SAM test as a system that we created just now. We'll assume that way. All right. So that's the first step there. All right. So the next step here is partners, right? In this case, we have the logical systems. The next step is the partners. So whom do we send the message to is basically the partner here, okay? And there's a transaction code WE20, which is an important transaction code where we go and create a partner profile. It could be a logical system, a partner. It could be a customer. It could be a vendor. It could be a bank. Any partner who is sending or receiving the message. Okay, it could be anything. Now, there are some transaction codes that we can use to go and check what are the partners that was created. All right. Give me 1 second, guys. Let me be back in 1 minute. Let me pause here for a second, okay? All right, I'm back, guys. Can you all hear me?
Yes, Sam. This is Rahul. Actually, I could not see the screen when you. Hello, Sam. Yeah, when you created the logical something, right? The SAM part, like my screen was, I had a problem with the screen. I got back just now.
Okay, no problem. Can you see it now?
Yeah, I can see the previous step where you were showing something like PAN, something SAM you created with. Yeah, this one. Before this step, it was not clear to me actually. I cannot see this.
Right. So we are basically going to this transaction called BD54, and we're creating a new system that you identify in your landscape. Let's say you are bringing a new, system into your landscape. Maybe you're buying a company, and because of that, new system came into your landscape, and you are building the interface with that system. You basically need to ensure, that system is here. So you go and create new entries. Let's say, in my case, I want to, create something. Usually I try to copy, so I do, SAM system test. Logical system is 2. Okay, so I save it. It is obviously a transportable object. So I will create my own request, SAM test 1. In this case, just 2. That's pretty much it. So it's a very simple transaction that you basically go and whatever system that you identified, you give it a name for it. Right? Only then you can set up the next steps. All right. All right. Hope that is clear, right?
Yeah. So this is our system or external system that you have created, right?
External system.
Okay, any external system. Like for example, if a new vendor wants to connect to our SAP system, so then we have to create external system by using BD54.
Right, but we have a different process for that. But let's assume in this case, for a simplicity case, what we're doing is we have our own system that we bought into our landscape. Vendors outside our landscape. Okay.
Yeah, within the firewall, you mean.
Right. So let's in this case, in this example, we are only considering systems within our landscape.
Okay.
We'll get to the next part. All right.
Okay.
So in this case, obviously we have the logical systems created, and I guess we have another person. Taiwo, you just joined, right? Can you hear me? Kenny, Taiwo, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Good evening.
Okay. Okay, good. Thanks for joining. We're obviously 1 hour, but I did record the session, so I will share it in the drive. You can also take a look and all. Okay.
Okay, that's fine.
All right. So obviously the next step here is to go and set up our W20, which is our partner, right? You basically need to create something called as a partner profile. But before we get and create the partner profile, we'll just take a look. We are just looking into transactions right now. So we understand the sequence of events that needs to happen so we can set up a successful message. So in this case, like I said, we are looking at a logical system within the company, right? Not a vendor or customer in this case. So let's say I have a logical system that I created. I can come and set up, a partner profile. A partner profile basically means you're setting up a profile in SAP, telling SAP, hey, we need to integrate to this system, and these are the IDocs kind of things, structure that we want to integrate, right? So let's say SAM test 1, that's the logical system I created before, and I say we are going to send all these different types of IDocs, like cost mass, like map mass, and maybe you're going to get, receive back all these different other types of IDocs and all. So we say SAP, okay, these are the possible combination of outbound and inbound messages that we want to be sending or receiving. Why we do this is because if we don't have a partner profile, SAP does not know which system to communicate with. SAP does not know when a message comes from a different system. It doesn't know, who is sending it, right? SAP needs to know, and that's why we have this partner profile that is set up. So we are not really going and setting up right now, but we're just looking into these, transaction codes, and we're trying to observe and see what is already set up. So we try to connect ourselves first, and then we go and start doing stuff. All right. All right. So I guess someone on the call, if you're not on mute, Kenny, can you put yourself on mute? There should be a mute button. If you put yourself on mute, we won't have any background noise. Thank you. All right. So now there are so many partners here, right? There's a handy table that you can use, like EDP 13 and EDP 21, that you can basically use to go and identify. We are looking at the table level right now. Sometimes it might be handy to look in the table level. We'll see why. So EDP 13. EDP 13 is a table that stores all the outbound partner profile details. And EDP 21 stores all the inbound partner profile details. All right. So when I just click execute, it just gives me there's obviously many, but it gives me a lot of details. All right. So if I want to just know how many entries are there, I'll just click on number of entries, the 957 entries, etc. Let's say I want to just specifically search for material master, okay, MATMAS. In this case, let's consider material master is MATMAS. That's a message type of the IDoc, not the IDoc type, the message type. So if you see, there's about 37 entries. So let's focus on material master IDocs here. Keep in mind, these are not IDocs. These are actually partner profiles to whom the IDoc is sent to, right? Remember we saw in WE02 before. If I just execute, you will see this IDoc number and partner. This is where this IDoc is going to. But SAP does not know to send this IDoc unless we have maintained a partner profile. In this case, outbound partner profile. So we just saw a couple of partner profiles, and SAM test 1 is what we saw in W20 transaction, right? It's the same exact transaction, the same transaction bringing values from this table, all right? And it's basically giving all other details. Let's not go into all these details, but I want to say about this transaction, this table, EDP 13, EDP 21, because in your day-to-day life when you work with IDocs, you may need to know which systems or which partners we are sending the IDocs to. Let's say, for example, go back to our slide here. Let's take, for example, in this case, we integrate ECC through PI, let's say to the shop floor system, okay? A PI, maybe PI to WMS in this case. So ECC to PI to WMS. SAP PI is the older form XI or process integrators, which is another middleware system like I already mentioned. What if PI is down? And warehouse management system is, was thinking that ECC is up and running because they're not getting any information, PI is down, and when we have an outage, right, which is what we say, when we have an outage, something is down. Sometimes the outage is planned, sometimes the outage is not planned. But whatever the case is, in this case, let's say the outage is unplanned and the PI went down, and you need to really go back and find if the material master from SAP really went to the warehouse management systems. Maybe we have multiple warehouse management systems. So all you can do is you can go to this EDP 13 transaction, put material master, and if you know the systems, you can just put in there and you can basically get more details, how many material master messages are going to, what are the different warehouse systems, and basically you can contact those system owners or the plant managers and tell them, hey, you didn't get the message for the last 2 hours. So make sure whatever you're doing is as per your protocol, right? For example, another case is batch message. If you work in a production environment, a batch is very important in some industries, and if the batch information is not passed properly to the shop floor system, the shop floor may use the think the batch is good and start using that batch for the manufacturing purpose. And that is actually a deviation, which actually results in a bad product, right? So it is critical. In some cases, there are critical transactions. Some cases, it's okay. We can fix it later on also. But the point I'm trying to make here is you are going to come across a situation where the systems are always going to go down. All right? These are all systems. ECC can go down, middleware system can go down, or maybe it's a planned outage. You need to plan something out, or an unplanned outage. So you need to figure out, okay, what are the different partners we integrate middle master with? Or maybe the middle master was created in SAP was by mistake. Some program ran and you created thousands of middle masters that went to all these, many different systems, but you have no idea which one. So you can go to WP, EDP 13, figure out all these different systems, and you can start talking to them and tell them, hey, ignore all these messages. So you can figure out and do something. You can get into some, resolution perspective. Similarly, EDP 21. Now, EDP 21 is a it's a table, obviously. It's not a transaction code. EDP 21 will give you some insight into what are the different inbound messages that we get from different partners. All right. So in this case, all these different types of messages are all built here. You want to see everything, obviously, when you run everything. But if you're very specific and you want to see a particular message, then you can probably put the message code and all those details, and you can execute these things. All right, so EDP 21 and EDP 13 are some good transaction, again, good table to remember. Going back to my slide here. Okay, so again, partner profile like WE20 that we do is generally a non-transportable object, which means that you have to consider this as a master data that needs to be set up when you go across the clients. So when you are in a project environment, when you actually play around in the sandbox environment, and you go to development environment, you create all these partner profiles and all, then you basically do some testing, but you want to do further testing, you actually move your transports to quality, but this is generally a non-transportable object. You need to go and set it up there as a master data. And you need to do W20 again in every client. When you go to production client, you need to go and set it. So as a part of cutover activity, that's what I'm getting at. As a part of cutover activity, when you guys are going live on a project, obviously, one of the biggest, number of requirements, if you work on the RISE-IF object, or ICEFW, RISE-IF-W, one of the things is interfaces, right? And there are a lot of interfaces that needs to be active when you go live also. And if you worked on all these interfaces, one of your role is going to be to go and set up the partner profile in the production environment also. Right, and you need to really control that also. If you set up the production partner profile maybe too soon, maybe the IDocs may just create and go out, or it might basically fail. Or if you create it too late, maybe there's another consequence for it. So you need to control, you need a plan when you want to set up the partner profile, or maybe you want to set up the partner profile and keep the IDocs in the POC status. See, we saw IDocs can be in POC status, right? In yellow status, you can also do that using partner profile. We'll look into that as well, but I just want to give you an idea when you set up a partner profile. Okay, and there are a couple of things that you do in the partner profile. Like I said, you create you know what the IDoc type is, the message type is, you know what the port is, and you basically set up it's going to be collect or transfer immediately. If you set it collect, it will be in POC status, yellow status. If you to transfer immediately, then IDoc will go out immediately out of SAP. All right. So either way, partner profile or partners are something that you need to set up, in every client and also in the production environment, and you have to carefully do so when based on the timing of the go live and when the other system is also ready to receive a message. What's the point setting up and sending the IDoc out of SAP when the other system is not ready to receive a message, right? There are so many things you need to consider. All right. So another concept in when we talk about integrating with SAP to non-SAP systems is distribution model. Okay. Now, it is always it's a debatable concept in my opinion. It is argued sometimes, but I'll tell you what it basically does. Do you need to set up distribution model for every single interface? No. But some cases, yes. We'll look into some of the cases as well. So now, but it's an important concept. So it basically says, where are you sending those messages, and you're creating a structure of allowed interfaces. Okay, and BD64 is the transaction code, and to set up the distribution model. Let's take a look at real quick at what distribution model is in SAP. BD64. So what we do is we create something called as a model. Again, like I said, we are actually looking into it right now. We're not creating it. We're looking into it. So we try to focus on the concept before we go and do it. So what I do is, let's say I want to create a distribution model for a system that I'm integrating with. So I'll create that as a model here. Okay. And I basically say, these are the different messages I want to integrate with those systems. BOM-MAT is the bill of material. MATMAS, another type of MATMAS, this example. So I really say what messages I want to basically send. So in this case, let's focus on material master, for example, right? So I give that information here. So when I try to build this model, it'll ask me some other details. When we go and create them, you will probably know some details. So we'll do the basic concept of distribution model using message type and all by creating our own model view. When you guys are working on exercises, you obviously need to create your own model view and do stuff. So we have to set up this distribution model, basically saying these are the interfaces set that I'm going to interface to this system, right? So on this case, SAM's Enterprise, I have Cosmos that is actually going to SAM test, right? All right, so BD64 is a transaction code, but like I said, it is not required for all the systems. But if you have standard SAP, if you're using a standard SAP system like BD10 or RCCLM, there are a couple of programs that we use. We'll also realize some of them as well, of course. But when we use these standard SAP programs, it does look for distribution model, and we have to set them up. Now, this change that you're doing in distribution model can be made transportable, which is a good idea to do it. But some of the companies don't even care about it, and they have it not transportable, issue, and as a result, they step on each other. So either way, but when you set up in one system, then you distribute to another system. That's what distribution model is. For example, when I say other system, not other third-party or other systems, it's an SAP system. Maybe let's say you're setting up distribution model in the development client. But if you want your interface to work in the quality client, you need to move your change, right, to the quality client. Remember I said, you need to transport into another client and production client, only then the interface will work eventually. But if it's a transport, you just do SCC1 and you move your transport, or you ask basis to move your transport, and that's fine. But if you are actually doing distribution model, basis can make it transportable, which becomes very easy, but you have to distribute it. We'll look into how you can distribute. There's an option in the distribution model itself where you can go and distribute here, right? But we'll look into that. So either way, now let's look at BD10. BD10, can you, like you asked, BD10 is a transaction code in SAP, a standard SAP transaction code to create material master IDocs. All right, and that's exactly what we're going to do right next, to generate an IDoc. So now let's say create a model name in the distribution model and you assign necessary source and destination logical systems, which means the systems you're integrating with all the message types that you want to use. And you basically start creating transaction in SAP, right? That's what we're going to do next. Now, how do you know what's the logical system name? You know the logical system name of the system that you created, right? Remember BD54, you created, okay, I'm integrating to SAM's system, which is another third-party system. You know the logical system name. But how do you know the logical system name for SAP? SAP also has a logical system name, right? Logical system is a name, it's a logical name given to your system for integration purpose. You can use SEC4. It's a transaction code you can use. Code SEC4. So in our case, we are in client 800. So client 800, and it basically brings everything in our server. And this is our logical system name, T9 TCL NT 090. And why do you need to know this? Because without this, you can't set up your distribution model. So if you say BD64, it usually takes some time. If you're setting up BD64, let's say I'm in SAM's Enterprise. I'm based T9 TCL NT 090, right? T9 TCL NT 090. So this is the system that I'm actually sending from, right? So we need to set up the sending system and the receiving system so my cost match message can really go there. And obviously you need to have partner profile set up as well. So you can use the SCC4 transaction code to get all logical system name of your SAP system. It's only for that purpose. It's more used for other purposes and all, but in this case we will focus on getting the logical system alone, right? So, all right, so BD10 RCCLM. Let's take a look real quick at what that is. I briefly mentioned it is to create and send the material, right? So let's say if you want to send this is a standard SAP transaction code. You can use it if you want to, as long as it fulfills the purpose of the interface requirement. Sometimes it may not, all right, because you need to play around with the structure. You want to have some programs that is actually updating the structure of the IDoc and all those things are involved. Okay, in this case, let's do a simple. Our objective is to create an IDoc. So we have created the logical system, which is SAM test 1. We have created the distribution model for SAM test 1, and we have created before that partner profile for SAM test 1, right? So let's take a look at partner profile again real quick. WE20, remember? So LS, which is the logical system, and SAM test 1. You can't create the SAM test 1 in this partner profile unless you have your logical system created, okay? And MATMAS, okay, I want to send material master IDoc to SAM test 1 because SAM test 1 is a system. So in this case, what happens is I also make sure the SAM test 1 model we also existed. We just saw that. So let me see. Okay, this is the material I'm just choosing, for example, and MATMAS, and the logical system is SAM test 1. I just execute. And it says 1 master IDoc created and 0 communication IDoc generated, which means that there's something wrong with the distribution model. Let's take a look again. So name of my model view. Okay, this time I got, last time it said 0 communication IDoc, it says 1 communication IDoc right now, which means distribution model did something, right? So because this program is looking at distribution model to see if it needs to generate an IDoc for that message, for the system. So in this case, it's created a 1 communication IDoc. Now the time is about 10 p.m. So let's go and look at WE02. That's where we go and look at IDocs, right? So I just execute just like that, and I got a cost map maps. Previously, we never had map maps, so now we have map maps message here, which just got created at 10:01, and this is a material master going to SAM test 1, and this is IDoc. When I double click on the payload, it brings me IDoc. It gives me all the payload and all these other details. So basic setup, right? So we had part logical system created, we had partner profile created, we created a distribution model, and we ran the standard SAP BD trend transaction code to create this IDoc in a very simple setup. Now there's another program, RCCLM DAT, right? Let's look at what that is. If you want to go
Sam,
more
that's
deeper,
why the status is showing as yellow?
Okay, it's a good question. Let me take a look. So you can also use RCCLM DAT to actually create and send an IDoc out to another system too. It's also a standard SAP program. If you want to run something in the background, you can use it. If you want to control in a much different fashion. So the BD10 RCCLM DAT or transactions that is given by standard SAP to basically send information. All right. So let's look at the IDoc here. So now MapMat, it is in yellow status, so which means it's POC status. So let's take a look at the partner profile. That's where we need to first look. Why it's not really going out? WE 20, right? So WE20 partner profile, SAM test 1 of the system, MapMat. It says collect IDocs, which means that it will basically be waiting until another program is run or you basically do something else, right? That's why the status is in POC. So let's take a little one step further. Let's go back to WE02 and look at the IDoc number first. Control records, get the IDoc number. Let's say I want to send it out of SAP, right? It should not be in the POC status naturally, And sometimes, not sometimes. Again, depends on how you want to design the IDoc. One of the critical decision making in whether to make it collect or to send immediately is how you want to build your interface, what the requirement is. You can create these IDocs, put it in a POC status, and you can run a batch job in the background to collect all these ones in the POC status and send it out. You can do that, rather than sending every single message, you can do that way also. sometimes there are some business critical IDocs that should not be even waiting for even a minute. So you can just put it into send immediately. But basis and ABAP has always argued, hey, don't send immediately. You're actually overloading the system. Put it into the POC status, run a background job, so maybe run every 5 minutes, every 10 minutes, and send these IDocs out of SAP. Both are possible, either to send it immediately or send it out of SAP. Whether basis is right or ABAP is right or you are right, doesn't really matter. But everything is possible. However, you want to convince SAP production system is capable of doing many things. Maybe your basis is right because your system is already overloaded with so many IDocs going out every single day, and don't overload more. They always care about it. So, but you need to make a decision. When you build an interface, one of the decisions that you make is how often does the receiving system need your IDocs, which is a very decision that you have to make. You have to ask the system. Let's say if you're integrating with warehouse management system, and they actually receive the material master information from SAP. Every time you make a change in SAP, right? It's a master data. There are two different types of data. We all know that. One is master data, one is a transactional data, right? A transactional data has to go out no matter what, right? Every time you create a purchase order, a production order, or a transfer order, it's a transaction data. Invoice, it has to go out. But do you want to go out every 5 minutes or every 10 minutes or once every day? It's up to you to decide based on your business requirements and your system, other system, when they want to receive it and all those things. And based on that, you set up your batch job. And before you set up the batch job, you make sure your partner profile is set up to collect IDocs. So that the IDocs will be in POC status and you send it in a controlled manner. But in other cases, if you are really sending, let's say, a batch information, or batch in a pharmaceutical or a food manufacturing or process industry, it's a very, very critical transaction. It needs to go out quickly. So you just do it, send immediately. Send immediate. IDoc is still considered as an asynchronous way of communication. It can only bring a near real-time communication. All right. So no matter what, but that's the fastest you could do. So that's a little story behind collect and send immediately, because that drives a lot of things. But what program do you run in the background, right? So now in this case it's in POC status. Let me see if it's still in the POC status. Maybe something else is running, I don't know. All right, so it's in POC status. So what I'll do is I will go and do BD87, which is another transaction code. I put the IDoc number and I execute. It brings me all the IDocs that can I possibly, in this case I just put the IDoc number. Let's say if I don't put the IDoc number, it brings everything possible that can be processed. Inbounds, outbounds, something failed, something is pending, and everything. You can reprocess IDocs, you can process the POC IDocs, you can look into what is processed and all those things. BD87 is a very good transaction code that you can use to do a lot of different things. All right, so in this case, just for the sake of simplicity, we will just put our IDoc number. I'll just click execute. I have the material master in the POC status, and I just click on process. So what it will basically do when I do it is, it will try to go and do the next step as per the program that is associated with the IDoc. Obviously in SAP everything is in the background is tables and programs and all. We're not going to look into all those things, but that's what it basically does. In our case, based on our design, the IDoc needs to be sent out. It says IDoc is written into XML format and all those things, right? So let's go to WE02 transaction again and click execute. And MatMass, oh, it's green because it did what it is supposed to be doing. Let's not go a little outside of this right now, but that's typically how the status gets changed. But you need to run certain batch jobs in the background that can actually do these things for you or for your client in the future. We'll look into the batch jobs as well. All right. My SAP is not loading properly. Go back to our slides.
Thank you very much for this. This is Rahul. And I want to know what is the basic use of the distribution channel over there, like, distribution model, like, what it is doing. Can you explain the short form, like what it is doing actually over there, the distribution model? I'm confused over there.
Right. The distribution model is basically, there are some programs within SAP that basically uses distribution model. Not every program, or if you write your own program, you don't need to use distribution model to set the IDocs out. Okay, so it has been there for a while, and there are some programs that still uses distribution model, and we are following that process right now in creating an IDoc. So it basically says which system is sending to which system and what are the messages it is sending. Right? But it does not go further than that. But partner profile goes further than that and says, okay, this system receives this message in this port and other details. So it is one step before that. We are basically saying SAP, okay, what are the possible combination of messages? That's not the only thing distribution model does too. Distribution model, you can also set up a positive filter in distribution model based on some values too, all right? Which means that, let's say you have a material master that has to be integrated, but you don't want to send out a material master where the plant status based on a field value, the status of the material master is a particular value. Let's say certain plant, certain storage location. You can do all those fancy things in distribution model without going and writing any programs by setting up filters. So again, not all the programs does it, but there are some certain programs within SAP that uses distribution models.
Okay.
All right. So coming back to our IDoc topic, we saw an IDoc that was created in a very simple fashion, obviously, and without going through a lot of configuration or a lot of changes and all. But an IDoc, obviously, when you set up the partner profile, you need to give certain information, right? You need to say whether it's put to collect or transfer immediately. You need to say the port it needs to go through. We'll look into port and all. And you also need to give two important information. One is an IDoc type. Another one is a message type. There are two different things, but they always link to each other. Okay? So let's look at the definition first, and then we'll talk about some history and all. So IDoc type basically, again, it's called as a basic type too. IDoc type, basic type, the same thing in SAP. It tells us the entire structure of the data that can be interfaced. Like for example, BOMM8002 is bill of material, 01, 02, 03, 04. These are all the upgraded version of the structure. Keep in mind, SAP goes through upgrades, and newer version keeps coming and coming and coming all the time. But as a result, a lot of things changes within SAP too, right? So in this case, in our example, we have BOMMOT02. It could be 01, but 02 is an upgraded version of 01, which means that 02 will have more fields than 01. We will look into SAP that and compare different IDoc structure and take a look. But an IDoc type is a structure. Similarly, MACMAS03 is the structure, all possible entire structure that can put all the values and all. A message type specifically talks about the process associated. All right. For example, message type is about the specific type of document that is interfaced to other systems. It's more related to the business transaction or process that is associated. Let's look further into it. It's a little confusing topic. All right. When you at least listen to it for the first time. Let's look at some examples. IDoc type or a message or a basic type tells us about the structure, and the message type tells us about the meaning. That's typically how you need to relay these things to. Okay? For example, IDoc type orders 05, like these are BOMAT 05, MATMAS 3, similarly orders 05, you know, which is for sending, you know, sales orders or purchase orders. We can use multiple message types like orders, orders change, ORDERs is orders. You know, if you want to send purchase orders, you know, or sales orders, orders. If you want to send, you know, if you want to change the order, then you probably use a different message type. So what basically I'm trying to say is the business process is different, so we use different message type, but we still use the same IDoc type. Because IDoc type is a whole universe of all possible structure a message type can receive. And orders, message type, when IDoc is created using orders message type, it could have maybe 5 fields. When it created orders change message type, it could have 100 fields. So it depends on the process and the meaning, the purpose of the message. In this case, both the message type is triggered out of different business process, but they use the same IDoc type structure. So message type adds business meaning to the IDocs generated. Okay. Another example, MATMAS 03. So when you look into SAP for MATMAS 03, all the possible message types that it can have, it has a lot of things, you know, like all these weird message types and all these things. We saw MATMAS, we have MATMAS GDS, MATMAS WMS, and all those different things. And we could create our own message type too, ZMATMAS, or ZMATMAS SAM, or ZMATMAS XYZ, of course, if you want to do some changes to it. Sometimes you do, right? But we still use MATMAS 03, which is the most latest version, or you might have MATMAS 05, or MATMAS 06, or MATMAS 07 in the future. So IDoc Delivery 01 is another message type, but it has all these other message types, shipment confirmation, or order, or another type of message type that can be used. Now, what you really need to know from functional standpoint is not all the message types will serve the purpose of the integration required. So you need to analyze. Okay, so what are the message types? Usually you will find them. You know, you can Google. I can get you some information, or you can find on SAP. But you need to understand: will it solve your integration requirement? You're trying to interface, let's say, material master to warehouse management system. Why do you need to use MATMAS? Why can't you use MATMAS WMS? That's a question. You need to find out. And how will you know the answer? Okay, based on what do they really need? Okay, they don't need purchasing information. They don't need MRP information. They only need warehouse management information. Keep in mind, MATMAS is for material master, right? In material master, you have different views for different businesses. MRP is for PP, and purchasing for PP and MM integration, or PPM just MM. You know, we have warehouse management, we have EWM. There's so many different views in material master for different businesses. So MATMAS is a material master IDoc that can basically take everything, and it has thousands of fields. Now, in your requirement, as the warehouse management system that you're integrating to, does it need all the fields? Maybe not. There are other ways to filter out and all, but if you have, that's what makes the decision of which material message type to use. It comes out of experience. It comes, maybe your client already set up. You can just go and take a look in W02 and you can figure out, okay, what's the message type associated with it, or you probably, you know, have some notes associated with it. But that's the difference. Clearly define IDoc and message types in this way, okay?
So this is Rahul.
Yeah, Rahul.
Sam? Yeah. So that means that, you know, there will be only one IDoc, but there may be different message types, right?
You know, you could use any IDoc type and any message type as long as it fits your requirement. But technically, yes, SAP does allow you to have multiple IDoc types and multiple message types. You can have MATMAS 03 associated with MATMAS, and you can have MATMAS 05 associated with ZMATMAS. And you can send both those interfaces to the same vendor or same system. But the structure will vary a little bit. And how much the structure varies, you need to look into the field and structure and segments and see whether it meets the requirement. Maybe, for example, let's say you guys built your own material master view on the material master. But when you use standard SAP, you can't send those new fields, right?
Yes.
So you need to customize your IDoc. You need to feed in extra fields. You need to add extra fields into the IDoc, and you need to create your own message type. But you can, and then you need to integrate. So in this case, you need, let's say you want to keep it separate from other systems. You need to create a separate, message type for it. Let's say you have other different systems receiving material master, and if you make a change to the IDoc, it will affect the other system. So you want to create a separate message type and integrate it. So it depends. What defines the requirement, what solves your requirement, and we are looking into options of how, but yes, all the possible things are there. Now, another thing to consider is every time you go for an upgrade, this is going to be a standard task for you. If you're working in the integration area, let's say we have MathMath 7 today, and tomorrow ECC 9.0 comes into picture, and SAP is bringing up MathMath 10. MathMath 10. We have MathMath 9, which is an IDoc structure. We have MathMath 10. MathMath 10 may have more fields. All right. Now, if you go and change something to use the partner profile, use MathMath 10, all the messages might fail in the middleware system. All the messages might fail in the third-party system. Keep in mind, the structure is like an agreement between all the three different systems, any three different systems. As if initially when you build the interface, you identify the requirement, you make sure you know what fields are required, you understand what values need to be changed, and you look into SAP, you come up with that, okay, IDoc type, message type combination, okay, this IDoc message type combination to this vendor or this system will solve the problem, which will give me the finalized requirement. Once you do that, you have to remind that way, because system doesn't really react easily to how ECC changes. So coming back to my example, if in the future ECC 9 comes into picture and MathMath 10 comes in as a result of that, then if you change the structure without letting other teams know, other systems know, message might fail, because you're sending extra fields. When you send extra fields, middleware doesn't really know what to do with it. It might fail. Maybe it will ignore or fail depending on how the middleware system is set up. And the other system might fail. I had an instance where we were integrating, I think it was Middle Master, or maybe it's a production order, I don't remember, to another automated warehouse management system, which basically messes up even if one IDoc fails, if one field changes. It was a very old style. They are an automated warehouse management system, and if you send 10 fields, you need to be sending only 10 fields. What if you send 11 fields? It doesn't really know what to do with it. It will just fail, and it will just stop the whole production or the whole packaging process. So the systems behave differently because they all are built by different teams, different software. So you need to ask these questions up front when you design the solution. Hey, tomorrow if SAP upgrades, what happens? Should I, if I upgrade and send it out, is it okay or is it not okay? They say, it depends on what format you use. If you send XML, it's okay. If you do, there are so many things we look into it. But that's an important question that needs to be asked, and that needs to be, handled during upgrade as well. And when you customize an IDoc upgrades, you need to do extra work as well during upgrades. Either way, that answered your question, right? Let's look at WE82 transaction code here. That'll give you some insight. All right, so we saw a famous math, right? Math. Let's do math. And I have math. You see all these different basic types associated with this, math 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I can send all these things. Math 05 was a recent from 4.7. So if you create your own message type, let's say if you create ZMATMASAM, you need to associate with the message basic type. Only then ZMATMASAM really knows what message type to use or basic type to use. We'll look into all these things later, but this is something that you have to do when you customize something. So we'll also customize in our course, and we'll take a look at how things react to. But this transaction at least will give you in existing environment that you're working on what message type is connected to what IDoc type, and that way you know the process a little bit. All right. All right. So any questions, guys, so far? Do you guys have any questions for me?
No, sir. Rahul.
Yeah, Rahul. Okay.
No.
So I got no from Vijay. Who is this again?
This is Sayyed.
Yes, Ayat, please go ahead.
Are you going to provide some document also for that? I think that is too fast for me. I'm not familiar with IDoc. I think it's a rapid fire for me.
Right. So, good. I mean, I understand that, and I'll try to go as slow as possible. You know, I'm not trying to jump around and all, but this is meant for to start. Right.
I'm not blaming you, but that is a part of the course. Means that is there any extra documents or anything, you have some that I can read it and I can understand it a little bit better, a little bit fast?
Right. I will definitely share a lot of documents in our folder, which you can definitely look. Plus, this session is recorded, which I'll also share it in the shared drive, which you can also go back and play around, play back and take a go slowly as well if you want to. All right.